Hey everybody! Today we're going to finish up section 4.5 and talk about the fifth and final way to prove two triangles are congruent. So we're on page 27 in your packet. Remember to be listening and writing these things down because proofs can seem really difficult, but once you get them down, they're really not too bad. All right, so the last type, or the last way to prove that two triangles are congruent, sorry, I'm distracted here, is using high leg congruence, which stands for hypotenuse leg of a right triangle. So if you look at the pattern, we talked about, well, let's write down the four that we already know. So we have side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, and then angle, angle, side. Remember, if it was side, side, angle, that spells a bad word. Either way you look at it, so that's not one of them. And if you look at this, that's exactly what you have, side, side, angle, or angle, side, side. You can't prove it that way. However, because you're dealing with the hypotenuse and a leg of a right triangle, you can prove that those are congruent. If it was any other type of triangle, you wouldn't. So high leg says if the hypotenuse and leg of a right triangle, that's important, are congruent to the hypotenuse and leg of the other right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. All right. So the only thing different with this compared to the other proofs is you have to prove that both triangles are right as well. So with the other four, you just prove that, the sides and the angles are congruent. But with this, if you want to use high leg, you need to make sure that you state that it's a right triangle first. Okay, so let's get started. Got a nice big proof here. Nothing's ready to go, so we'll do that now. Statements, which remember just things you're telling me about your diagram, and then the reasons are your reasons for telling me that, your why. All right, so let's first start by getting our givens in there. So we have SR is congruent to XT. I'm just going to copy them all down now. X is the midpoint, abbreviating a little bit there, of SP. SR is perpendicular to RX. And finally, XT is perpendicular to TP. And the reason for all of those is given. And I'm just going to write that here, just kind of draw an arrow down, which is fine. Okay, so what we're trying to prove is triangle SRX is congruent to triangle TRX. All right. So let's see what we have. Let's see what's given, mark our picture up, and see what we're working with and what we still need to do. So the first one, SR is congruent to XT. All right, so we have a side. X is the midpoint of SP. So that tells us that SX and PX are the same. So SX is congruent to PX, and the reason was this right here, the definition of midpoint. All right, we have another side. Now the only other thing that we have is SR is perpendicular to RX, which means that angle R is right, and XT is perpendicular to TP, so angle T is right. Now, because there's only one angle there, you can just say angle R and angle T, or you can put your numbers in. It doesn't matter. But either way, we now know that angle R and angle T are right. Right angles, I should say. Or you could say angle 1 and angle 2 are right. Sorry, it's a little sloppy. Either way. So if you're used to using the numbers, you want to still go that route, you can. Now, here's the thing. We don't have any freebies. I don't see a reflexive. I don't see a vertical angle. And we can't prove it using one of our ways that we talked about before because it spells if you follow the path, ASS, which is a bad word, or SSA, which is a bad word backwards. So this, if you look, because these have right angles, they're right triangles, and you have the hypotenuse and the leg. So what we're going to do, well, first of all, R and T are right, and that was definition of perpendicular. Sorry, getting ahead of myself there. So with this, you don't have to say angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. All right, what you do need to say, though, is that you have that triangle SRX and triangle TRX are right triangles. And how did we know they're right triangles? Well, I see a right angle. So you can say definition of a right triangle, or right triangles contain a right angle. Again, or you could just say definition of right triangle. All right, so for high leg, remember, you need to first prove that the triangles are right, which we did in step 7. We have S, R, and XT right here. Those are your legs, so I'm just going to be more specific. So we have legs are congruent, SX and XP or PX, that's your hypotenuse. So you've proved that the legs are congruent, you've proved that the hypotenuse is congruent, you've proved they're right triangles. So now for your final step, we're just going to say triangle SRX. Remember, it's just you're given as your last statement is congruent to triangle TRX. And the reason is high leg. That we've proved the hypotenuse and leg. And those are it for your 5. So let's do another example here, see what we have. So here's our givens. Let's get those written in. So we have our statements. This is the longest part of proofs. Proofs aren't overly difficult, but you got a lot of writing, and I know a lot of us don't like writing. Before I even look, I see the reflexive property, and if you wanted, you could put that as step 1 before your givens. There's nothing that says that the givens have to go first. So there's our free item, the reflexive property. All right. I personally like to put all my givens first, but again, it's up to you. So RS is perpendicular to TS. We'll get them all written down and then we'll talk about them one at a time. RV is perpendicular to TV. And ST is congruent to VT. We like to see that because that means we have a side already. All right, so 1, 2, and 3 are all givens. Again, you can write it once and just draw the arrow down if you want. Up to you. Okay, let's see what we have. So RS is perpendicular to TS. And RV is perpendicular to TV. Okay, so based on these two right here, my first statement is going to be angle S and angle T are right angles. And I knew that by the definition of perpendicular. Now, If you're using high leg, remember you don't have to state that they're congruent. If you do, it's not a big deal. If you're using any of the other four, you do. All right, let's see what other information it gave us. So it gave us ST and VT. ST is congruent to VT, so we have a side, and more specifically, we have a leg of a right triangle. All right, so it looks like our plan is to do high leg. So my next step, I'm going to say triangle RST and triangle RVT are right triangles. Make sure you use the right symbol, not right angles, right triangles. And that's, you can just say again, definition of a right triangle. Okay, so we proved it's a right triangle. We found the leg. Now we need the hypotenuse, which is an easy one. RT is congruent to itself by the reflexive property and again, reflexive has an X. We usually mark it with an X. That could be one way to remember. So you have your hypotenuse, you have a leg, and now you've already proved that they're right triangles. So now we can say triangle. Again, you're using your given up here. Triangle RST is congruent to triangle RVT. And that is by high leg, hypotenuse leg. And you can write high leg is congruent to high leg, or you can just write high leg. All right. Ooh, fill in the blank. You guys love those. All right. So why don't you, it might be a good idea to pause the video and try this and then check with me. All right. So N and Q are right angles. That was given. And I'm going to mark it. So angle N and angle Q. And again, you don't have to number them if there's just one angle. If you were using one of these angles right here, you would have to number them because there's more than one angle at P. All right, triangle ONP and triangle PQO, so our two triangles, are what triangles? Definition of right triangle. Well, they're right triangles. And we knew that because of the right angles, so I'm guessing we're doing high leg. Reflexive property, so that means that OP or PO, doesn't matter. OP is congruent to OP. All right, so we've proved it's a right triangle. OP is your hypotenuse. NO and PQ are the same. So there's your leg, and that was given. So for this type of proof, again, I like to put all my givens at the start, but this person didn't put the givens in until later on when they wanted to use them, which is perfectly fine. There's no order to these. But what's important is making sure whatever you're trying to prove is your last statement. So triangle ONP is congruent to triangle PQO, and the reason is high leg. I'll make sure on your quiz tomorrow that I have at least one fill in the blank proof and not just a full proof. Okay, so this is your practice. Tell me that's not the same question. It is the same question. Whoops. That's okay. So it looks like we will, when you're working on these questions, you don't have to do number 2. But start with number 20 on page 29 with number 1. This is what we're going to cover in class, probably Monday since you have a quiz tomorrow. But make sure you know the 5 ways to prove two triangles are congruent. Side, 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 angle, angle. And remember, it's angle, angle, side, because side, side, angle spells a bad word. And then high leg. That will be a question on your quiz. Make sure you know your 5 ways to prove your triangles are congruent. Okay, so I will see you tomorrow for your quiz. make sure you watch all your videos, even try the practice, and let me know if you have questions or stop by the math lab. Have a great day.